regular.
There's another one. There's Carol Howard or somebody has a resolution.
Okay, let them do all them while he getting this.
Okay.
Oh, we making copies now.
No, I'm good. The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Coulthard. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Odenberg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvy. Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. President Reed.
Here.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderman Coulthard. Alderman Cone. 23 present.
Quorum being present, we will be led today in prayer by Pastor John Watson, Jr. of Maple Temple.
And we all stand for prayer. Gracious God, Heavenly Father, as we assemble in this chamber today with our elected officials and the community at large, we're thankful for the privilege of prayer. We acknowledge in mercy and kindness, and no thought of ours is left unnoticed, no desire of our concerns ignored. You've proven that the blessings abound when we fall on our knees in prayer. And so we turn to you in this hour as our great city experienced progress. It also experienced violence and cries for justice. We hear your voice telling us what is required, only to do justice and to love goodness and walk humbly with your God. Fill us with your mercy so that in turn we can be merciful to others, so that we may seek peace and justice in our communities. Strengthen the hearts of our elected officials so that their hearts beat only to the rhythm of your holy will. Flood our path with your light as we walk humbly toward a future filled with encounter and unity. Be with us, O Lord, in our effort, for only by the prompting of your grace can we progress toward the future together. We ask these through Jesus' name, amen.
Let's give Reverend Watson a round of applause and thank you for opening us up in prayer today. We're going to spend with our regular order of business, take up our courtesy resolutions calendar. Alderwoman from the 19th. You recognize on the motion for our courtesy resolutions calendar.
I move to adopt our courtesy resolution.
Been moved by the Alderwoman from the 19th, seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd. Alderwoman from the 14th, would you like to approach the dais? Alderwoman from the 14th, would you like to approach the dais?
Good morning. This morning we're recognizing the Gateway Hemophilia Association that's located in the 14th Ward. As we celebrate their 50th anniversary, I would like to invite Bridget Tyree, the Executive Director, Trudy Stringer, the 50th Anniversary Coordinator, Jen McNamee, the Program Manager, and Ann Parrott, President, and her children, Rose and Jack, to the dais. Hemophilia is a dreaded disease that people suffer from and can result in many adverse consequences. People with hemophilia have a limited ability to carry on normal functions in their life. And with that said, I will turn the microphone over to Bridget?
Oh, looks like it's me.
Okay. To Trudy Stinger to talk about Stringer. Okay.
Okay, just to keep this brief, thank you all very much for this honor. We were here last year deeming that March is our Bleeding Awareness Month. And World Hemophilia Day is April 17th. And we're having our 50th Gateway Hemophilia Association anniversary on that date. Look for the planetarium. It will be lit up in red for us on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. That's for us, so we're very proud to say that. We've been working in this a long time, and hopefully we'll have another 50 years. The reason I am here is because my husband died of AIDS. He was a hemophiliac, severe hemophilia, less than 1% clotting factor. But he raced cars and he did all kinds of crazy things, and he led a full life, died at 33. It's also Bridget's father. So I've been in this about 40 years or so. I think I met him at 17. And I will continue to be that. They've honored me with an award recently for advocacy, and we continue to be in Washington, D.C., and we continue to be in Jefferson City on the Hill. We go every year. We have for many, many years and done this. I put together the very first advocacy day there. So we're always looking ahead and looking behind, only to remind us that we're here for a reason. With that, I'd just like to have Ann come up and just say a couple words about her kids.
Hi, my name is Ann Parrott, and I got involved in the community when my son Jack was born with moderate hemophilia B. As a parent, it was a life-changing diagnosis, and it's a really scary thing, but through Gateway Hemophilia, we have found amazing resources, and he can be a normal kid with getting his medication that he needs and knowing that he's got amazing care. He can do all the things that a boy needs to do and wants to do. So I am very grateful for the community, and thank you for this opportunity.
With that said, I would like to proclaim Hemophilia Day on April 17th and recognize their efforts to raise funds and to promote the awareness of hemophilia in the city of St. Louis and the broader community. And I will turn the microphone over to our President, Reed.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? I just want to also just add my thanks for the association for all that you do to raise awareness, but to also help families all across the city of St. Louis. Your work across the 50 years that the organization has been in place has probably touched thousands and thousands of families across the city of St. Louis and across this region. So I thank you on behalf of the city and as a father of four, for the work that you've done. This resolution that we give is the highest honor the board has to give any organization or individual. But what it does, it cements in time some of the organization's total contributions up until this point in time. So 100, 200 years from now, when you research the records of the city of St. Louis, you will be able to read about this day and understand that we paused in our deliberations to recognize you for the great works that you've done. Join me in giving them a big round of applause and thank you for a job well done.
I'm good.
You sure? Jump in there. Tell people how they can get involved and how they can help.
So if you want to get more information, you can go to gatewayhemophilia.org. We are located in the city of St. Louis. We cover eastern Missouri, southern Illinois. We have about 800 800 individuals in the state of Missouri. And we have a walk in Forest Park on May 4th at Cricket Field. So we'd love for you all to come out and unite for bleeding disorders on May 4th. Thank you.
Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderwoman from the 6th, please approach the dais.
Good morning, everyone. This is a bittersweet meeting. It's our last meeting with the Alderman from the 24th as our colleague, so I just wanted to pause and let him know how much we've appreciated working with him. Scott came to St. Louis to attend Washington University from Minnesota in 1999 and fell in love with both the city and his lovely wife, Ruth. Sorry, he was a little busy, so we'll bring up Alderman Ogilvie and Ruth and Mara. Nice bow tie. So we have Mara and Alderman Ogilvie's wife, Ruth. So we all know Alderman Ogilvie as a devoted husband and a proud father. He's also an intelligent and humble public servant. We are very lucky that Scott chose St. Louis. He has been a zealous, smart, and effective advocate for legislation and policy on a wide variety of issues, including public transportation, bicycle and pedestrian-friendly infrastructure, campaign contribution limitations, and has been very thoughtful and numbers-based logic on tax incentives here, as well as tackling issues on regional fragmentation. From time to time, Alderman Ogilvie has been viewed by some as an obstructionist or impossibly adversarial, but he is now known as a wise wordsmith and one of the board's most methodical, thorough, and well-researched members. Upon his decision to not run again. He created an exceedingly meaningful metaphor to be used both wisely as a call to action for our region and a sardonic quip among colleagues working at City Hall when he likened his wife's salon not having scissors to work with their customers. To quote the alderman, "This is what living and trying to govern in a city wrecked by suburban sprawl and depopulation and devastating crime and an inadequate tax base is like. We accept that rich people get excellent services because they wall themselves into suburban enclaves and avoid engaging with the rest of the region. We accept that poor people will have poor services because they are poor. We accept that the middle class will endure a series of choices driven by anxiety and fear rather than love and optimism." Alderman Ogilvie embodies the true meaning of public service and devotion to the city of St. Louis. Scott, while sometimes lovingly referred to as a curmudgeon despite his young age, has regularly stood in deference to or left the meeting in protest because of supporting the best interests of women, indigenous people, and stands on the right side of history many times. His departure leaves a role not easy to fill, so we pause today to admire how Scott has moved the city forward during his time as alderman and to thank him for his years of service.
Hold on, you can't talk yet. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is a very sad day for the city of St. Louis and for the Board of Aldermen and for myself. I have grown very fond of Scott over the years. Alderman Ogilvie and I have been friends since his election and shared an office for most of his time down here. I had the good fortune of being able to watch him change after riding his bike down to City Hall and having to deal with sweaty clothes in my office for days on end. So we're no longer office mates at this point, but he and I have often been confused for one another. Particularly in my younger years, I haven't kept up my aging regimen as well as he has, and I was a few pounds lighter at one point in time as well. But my doppelganger down here at City Hall, the alderman of the 24th Ward, Scott Ogilvie, Dogtown, Alderman 25th Ward, Shane Cohn, Dutchtown. It's been a sheer joy and pleasure working with you over the years and getting to know you and your passion for the city and for good government and transportation, and your wife and your lovely daughter, who I know love you and care for you so much and are going to be much more happy that you're able to spend more time with them, hopefully. Anyway, Scott, it has just been an awesome experience serving with you down here, and I look forward to your new journey. Hopefully you'll share that with people soon. And I will do whatever I can, obviously, to help and support you in your new endeavors. And we'll miss you down here, and your presence will be greatly missed. Thank you for your service.
Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. So, Scott, if I had my brothers, you would still be here. But I understand, when you become a parent, you have to consider many other things. And you're young, you might come back at some point, somehow. But I really do appreciate your service here. It's great to see someone come in and have so much enthusiasm and try very strongly to change us. And you happen to have changed me a little bit. Because I like the way you debate. Because you do your homework and you come with true facts, not idealistic pie in the sky. Okay? So I can respect that and I can adhere to it. And so I appreciate the way you have served. I appreciate that on many occasions you have silenced me. and I would rather hear your viewpoint. So that says a lot about what you have done. So I thank you again, and I hope that I see you involved somehow in continuing to do the work and the service and the betterment of the city of St. Louis. Thank you again.
Alderman from 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Scott, it's been a pleasure. I think we've pretty well talked to each other and agreed on a lot of things, and sometimes we didn't agree on some, but that's part of life. I'm going to miss your knowledge down here, and I agree with the Alderwoman from the 19th. You always did your homework, which a lot of us don't always do all of our homework. I can say you was very intimidating down here when you stood with your hands on your hip. According to the former alderman from the 11th, he told me to tell you that, and told me to tell you he wishes your best endeavors for the future. But Scott, I just want to say the same thing. Sometimes we move on after a short stay because we want to do other things, try to improve quality of life, and I think that's where your mind has always been. But I do appreciate your time down here. Thank you.
Alderman from the 16th.
Alderman Ogilvie, simply put, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate the experience and knowledge that you've imparted on me. The truth here is, before I was thinking about running for office, Scott was one of the few aldermen that currently was in these chambers that I reached out to ask if it would be a good idea. After a good conversation, we thought it would be, and I got a lot of good advice from you, Alderman, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the proximity that we share as well down here. Again, through osmosis, a lot of experience and knowledge has been obtained from me by you, and I appreciate that. I'm going to miss watching the way your mind works around city policy in the days ahead, but no doubt what lays in store for you in the future is going to be bright, and congratulations.
Alderman from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like to extend my gratitude to the alderman from the 24th, my aldermanic colleague to the south. I'm very appreciative of all of your time. When I got started, your willingness to share your experience and your wisdom with me, and I can't promise now that you've moved on that I won't continue to reach out, but I do wish you all the best. So thank you very much for all your time here.
Alderman from the 22nd.
I want to thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Scott, I would like to say certainly thank you for your years of service down here. I remember when you came down here as an independent, wanting to change the city, wanting to change our hearts and minds. And then you woke up one day and said, I want to get right with them and be a Democrat. So that's when you kind of tamed and settled in, as I should say. I always enjoy your spirited debates. You do good research. As the resolution said, you're pretty methodical. You care about this city. You care about this region. When you made that announcement, all of us was in awe, if you remember, because we just couldn't believe it. You know, just when you were kind of getting up there and ready to do good things, you said, okay, I think I want to quit and give it to somebody else. But a true leader knows when the good deed is done and they run their course. I hope the mayor finds something good for you to do for the city of St. Louis or somebody in this region, because we certainly need bright ideas and good men like you. Thank you.
Alderman from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I know people are probably shocked that I'm up at this mic, but I definitely want to thank Scott for his service. We were office mates for probably 2 years. We never said a word to each other for a myriad of reasons, and he was often on the other side on every bill I carried, but sometimes we need people to poke holes in legislation so we can do what's in the best interest of our constituents. I seen him make that curve, that learning curve, and be more friendly. I admired him when he yelled into the mic one day that he was pontificating So just thank you for your service. It's a good space to be able to go on and do something different, and it took us a while, but we got there. Thank you.
Alderman from the 17th.
Mr. President, members of the board, I just want to rise and reiterate so much of what's been said. I was probably one of the people down here that, as someone was talking about earlier, who thought of Scott as a curmudgeon. It's been, we like to think that we've changed Scott. The reality is that Scott changed us as well. And I think he made observations and brought to us and forced us to reflect on different ways of doing things. And in any event, Scott, it's been great working with you down here. I think you've made a really great contribution to the city. Thank you.
Alderman from the 20th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too rise to thank the Alderman from the 24th for your service. Even though we were often on the same side of issues, and we often were, we always found something to disagree with about. And I think it's your contrarian, perhaps oppositional, obstinance that has always ended us in a better place. And it's the fight that has made us come at the end with better bills, better legislation, and a better city. So thank you for your service.
Alderman from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Scott, you've definitely forced everyone to break out their thesaurus before they talk with you. Me personally, I just read the funny papers. But we will miss you, and I hope to see you around. I know I will on the bike race on the Hill. But I liken your time down here to the one movie very shortly, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 8th.
For your guidance as I'm getting started here as well, and I'm sad to see you go with the wealth of information that you have. And I also would like to move that we embank this resolution.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 8th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 18th.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. This is a political body, and you came into a political environment. But sometimes we forget that we're just people. We're individuals with families, with hurts, with strengths, with weaknesses. And when you came, I saw a young man, I can say that nowadays since I'm one of the senior aldermen down here. I saw a young man who had filled with ideas, and he would always grimace before he would get up and start talking. I said, what's happening with him? Then we had the opportunity to talk. And I realized the experience that he has had in his life and the experience of his family. And so what I have seen then is growth as a person. Despite the politics, it seems to me that I've seen you grow as an individual, that you're a more enriched human being than when you first came here. And whether that happened in 35 years or 50 years or in 2 days, it happened. And that is more important to me than simply the political position you took, or how dialectical you spoke, or how intellectual or erudite you were on the topic. You have grown as an individual. And so then I can say to you as a new type of person, one that is different than when you came in, congratulations on your work here, and I wish you the best in your further endeavors.
Any further discussions? Any further discussions? Alderman from the 25th.
I really just want to watch Alderman Ogilvie grimace and put his hands on his hips before he takes the mic. So I thought I'd prolong him getting to the microphone for just a second longer. That's all. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Also, you know, I tell you what, I am so disappointed to see you go. And I've told you that personally and otherwise. You know, I had a chance, everybody knows that I ride a bike, right? I had a chance to go on a couple bike rides with Scott. That stopped after the second one because he wanted to hold a conversation, and I was busy trying to catch my breath. I was like, couldn't wait for the stoplight to come so that we could slow him down some. But that's the way you approach the things that you do, Scott. Our system of democracy demands and also requires compromise. The people that are successful at it, successful at changing things, they change it through working with others, expanding the knowledge of others, and also working to expand their knowledge at the same time. When we come to a job like this, we come to it with the sum total of our knowledge and all of our upbringing up until that point in time. We also bring with us, when we sit here, the wants and the needs and the wishes and the dreams of people that we represent. And on behalf of the city of St. Louis, my family and friends, I am so honored to have had the opportunity to call you my friend. You have done just a tremendous job of expanding the knowledge of people here on the board. And you've done it because you've had a solid moral compass, and when people engaged with you, they understood that you were approaching things based on what was in front of you and not who was carrying the bill or the personalities of anybody on the other side. And it takes something to do that, and that's a rare quality, and that is a gift. And that's a gift you have. Let's give Scott a big round of applause for a job well done. And it's hard to find what a good gift would be for Scott. So this is a gift we got, Scott. And what it is, it's a George W. Bush, and it says, "Still President." Now, what does that mean? So if we wanted to select a Republican president, could you ever imagine there would be a time when we'd say, if we had a Republican president, George W. Bush, we would hope that that would be our president. So this is, on behalf of the members of the Board of Aldermen, George W. Bush, still the president. Okay.
Oh, it's a very impressive looking knife in this box. Thank you, President Reed. All right, good morning. 8 years ago, my first day here was Alderman Matt Villa's last day here. And I remember everybody remarking on Matt Villa's dreamy eyes, his wonderful hair, how sorry they were to see him go. And I noticed nobody mentioned my dreamy eyes today. That's all right. You guys know how I feel about resolutions in general. So it's a little ironic. I got one today. And on that topic, this quote is often attributed to Abraham Lincoln, although it's dubious as to whether he actually said this or not. He said, "If you want a 5-minute speech, I'll need a week to prepare that. If you want me to talk for an hour, I'm ready right now." And I was scribbling some notes right before I came up here, so settle in. Not really. I was thinking about some regrets I have in this job and some mistakes I made. A particular regret, I took a close look at Alderman Vollmer's bar recently. I don't mean Milo's, I mean the bar in his office. And and I felt like I had done something wrong and not maybe emulating some things that my colleagues were doing. And then a mistake I made, maybe perhaps made. Do you guys remember the bill that would have permitted emus and ostriches everywhere in the city? You might say I went too far with that one. On the other hand, the RFT just did a long cover story about those 6 cattle that escaped and were marauding around St. Louis. And St. Louis on the Air, I think, did a whole hour on those 6 cattle. And I feel like the news-making potential of escaped ostriches in the city is really second to none. So I hope you guys revisit that after I'm gone. In my 8 years here, I got, for me, I got many of the things that I was particularly interested in done. I checked a lot of boxes I cared about. And I feel I was lucky to do so. But there's one thing that I didn't do, and I didn't try to do, but I hope we will do, and that's can we change the term alderman to city council, please? The translation of alderman is oldest man, which sometimes I'm starting to feel like, but city council is a term you never have to explain to anybody, while alderman is a term you are constantly explaining. I had a friend come in, I had a friend visit with her friends one evening, and I went out to get a drink with them, and it was kind of a noisy place. And my friend introduced me. He said, "Here's Scott. He's an alderman." And of course, these folks were not from St. Louis. And they spent the whole evening thinking that I was that alderman was my last name. And I was from some prominent family with the last name of Alderman. And I realized that's why these people were so unpleasant to me the rest of the evening. If I could have just said, I am on the city council here in St. Louis, it would have changed that night for sure. So it would require a charter amendment, but I say let's do it. You guys put it on the ballot. I'll help you campaign to strip all the references to Board of Aldermen and change it to city council. Quickly, I want to say thank you. I mean, it is truly an honor and a privilege to get to do this job, to be a member of local government, to have voters support you. And I want to, of course, thank voters and residents within the ward and just tell them I appreciate the opportunity to do this. As the alderman from the 18th, I think, said, it truly was a real opportunity to learn more and grow as a person. And hopefully I did right by voters in the ward. I also want to say thank you. I think I mentioned this at our last meeting, but just give a shout out and say thank you to all the city employees who run this place. It can be a tough job. There are many challenges, many headwinds when you work for the city and your sort of frontline service delivery. And I think sometimes we don't think enough about all the city employees, and I just want to thank them for all the work they've done. And people have been asking me what I was going to, what message was I going to deliver here my last time to address the Board of Aldermen. And I was accumulating all these thoughts, and then I realized if I haven't said it already in 8 years, I should have run for office again if I wanted to keep pontificating. I'm sure all my points I've already said. And when I said hi to Judge Edwards earlier this morning, I said, Judge, what brought you in today? And he said, well, today's Terry Kennedy's last day. So if there's going to be a real speech, I'll leave it to Alderman Kennedy. So on that note, I just want to tell everybody good luck to the Board of Aldermen. May fortune favor this body and the rest of the city of St. Louis. Thank you very much. Yes, and you can tell people who have experience doing these things can give you tips. President Reed just said, maybe you want to thank your wife and child for coming to that. So, my wife, has it been 13? Let's round up. Let's call it 15 years. My wife, Ruth Ogilvie, and my daughter, who has left the podium. Oh, she's coming back. There she is. Oh, that's typical. There we go. Come here. She's got a cold. My daughter Mara. Thank you, everybody.
One more, Madam Mayor. Hold on, Madam Mayor.
Thank you all for letting me use this microphone again. Alderman Ogilvie, you have served your constituents well. You have served this city well. You have to serve from 9 to 12 years to get the training about thanking your wife. The first 8 years, that's not in the book. But we all know that Ruth and Mara are a really important part of how you've served your community. Others have said this, but I agree you have changed us through your persuasive comments, and that has all been for the better. The only other thing I would say is that when you started out your comments tonight, or this afternoon, you started with your regrets. That's just so Scott. Starting with the regrets instead of starting with all the great things you did. Thank you. You have a long, long list of accomplishments, and our city and our constituents are better for having you been the alderman for the last 8 years. Thank you.
I think, yeah, we'll wait and do it. Okay. We were going to do the board with photos with Scott. Scott said, let's wait and do you and Terry together. So, Alderman, would you like to approach the dais? Alderman from the 21st.
give them a round of applause again, please? This is the family and friends of our illustrious alderman, our majority floor leader, the Honorable Terry Kennedy. Alderman Kennedy had no clue that this was going to happen today. We have been planning this for close to 2 weeks now. When I first became an alderman, the first one to reach out to me and offer me any guidance on legislation or policy or just on our culture, period, was Alderman Kennedy. Realistically, he was the one thing I looked forward to on Fridays at 10 o'clock a.m. Sitting with him, talking to him, learning from him, studying him, watching his every move. I can honestly say he has made me a better alderman, and I think he has made all of us better legislators, just as he's made this chamber better, and he has made the city of St. Louis better. We are fortunate to have worked alongside him, watch him deliberate and legislate on behalf of the 18th Ward and the entire city of St. Louis. From creating a $1 million youth crime prevention fund under the leadership of President Reed, to being the first alderman to open up public sessions when he was the chairman of Ways and Means so residents can have an input on where they want to see their tax dollars go. From passing various pieces of legislation that has changed the course of this city, Alderman, it is without a doubt you will go down in history. Today I am happy for you, but I am a little sad because I know when I look to my right, you will not be in that particular chair. But I know when I look to the front, I will see you as our first African-American clerk of the Board of Aldermen. So we have a resolution, and I just know one of my colleagues is going to move to embank it, but I'm not going to read it because we know all the good that Alderman Kennedy has done. The work speaks for itself. Alderman, you know, in African culture, they teach us to count the number of man. You have been alderman for nearly 31 years. That's 11,315 days. That's 370 and 564 hours that you have dedicated your life to this city and to our community. Another Kenyan proverb says, it is the pot that is empty that makes the most noise. It is safe to say that you have left this city and this chamber with a full pot of optimism, love, and most importantly, truth. I am in awe of you, I honor you, and I believe this chamber honors you. Asante, Mr. Chairman. And asante means thank you in Swahili. In fact, I would ask everybody in this chamber says, asante, Mr. Chairman. Asante, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for all you do.
Alderman from the 18th, we're going to have you come up here and stand up here if that's okay. It's tough to give the alderman from the 18th instructions. That's why he was still sitting down there. Alderman from the 19th.
Oh, you all know I always call him my king. Terry Kennedy has something very special. And it started a long time ago. So when you look at his family history, you'll understand who this young man is. But I had the opportunity of learning firsthand who he is. We have been working very close together for the last 35 years. You see, he was in the community helping young people even before he became an alderperson. He was a part of so many things that enrich most especially young men and giving them a pathway to understanding their responsibility on this earth. I know that the 18th Ward flourished so under his leadership. I watched it. I was a part of it. I was a partner in some of it. We even had the first neighborhood plan that was done for a north side neighborhood. We did it in joint with the 19th Ward. I love everything about you. You know that. You know, if you want to get me on one of my tantrums, you can say something bad about you. I got your back. And some of you all have not experienced that side of me yet, and you pray that you don't. But what I love to say to you today, Terry, is that it took a lot for you to give, because you gave your life to this mission. You truly did. You gave it. There were a lot of other things that you could have been doing. There was a lot of places that you could have been making a whole lot more money, because you are a smart, intelligent man. You have traveled. You understand the world. You understand people and their ups and downs and their misunderstandings of who they are and how they should fit. And you allow them in a very gracious way to be who they are. But you also take that moment to educate them on where they should be and how they should understand. And so I thank you for that too. But you know, you'll never be totally apart from where you are today, because that's a part of your life. And you will still be on the mission to some degree. And so I appreciate you in so many, many ways. I let my son know that you were retiring. I told my sister and everybody, because the history is just incredible. If my children had not had the opportunity to be a part of the things that you supported, I don't think they would have been as good as they are. Because you see, I never had any trouble with them. And that was because of the roots that you all put there with them on who they should be and how they should act. So I thank you. I thank all of his family, because you gave him to us and you supported what he was doing, because I always saw you there. And I thank your community for also being a community that was healthy, because they understood how they had to be a part of partnerships and they had to work together. And even though we fuss and fight sometimes, it was all about the mission and how we were going to accomplish that. And so, so many of them who have gone on, I was thinking about BJ and others. It's just amazing what you have accomplished. And you probably should write a book. Yeah. Thank you, the illustrious Alderman Terry Kennedy.
Alderman from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to say thank you to Alderman Kennedy. Terry has been a great leader, a wonderful mentor. I remember, my first election down here. I came to the board also bright-eyed and full of energy, I'd like to think. But also, fresh off my election, I was actually approached by Jim Merkel, who's the journalist here today, and was asked, about my actual aldermanic campaign and whether or not, being an openly LGBT person affected my campaign, and whether or not voters voted for me, or if that played a role. And my response to Jim at that time was, well, I'm sure some people voted for me because of it, and I'm sure some people voted against me because of it. But when I came down to the Board of Aldermen, I came with a great sense of responsibility and compassion, not only for my voters, but for the city as a whole. And Alderman Kennedy was one of the first that I had the privilege of being able to speak openly about the issues facing, the LGBT community, and also, representing a ward that is one of the most diverse and inclusive wards in the entire city. Partnering with Alderman Kennedy on so many issues that affect the city as a whole, I came to realize that he is just a wonderfully knowledgeable and compassionate individual who cares for so many spirits in this great city of ours and wanting to make the city a better place. And through that conversation, we opened the doors to future conversations as well, as it pertains not only to the LGBT community, but the city as a whole, and the history behind it, and the path forward, I think, to make the city a better place. So oftentimes in our society, there's buzzwords of diversity or inclusion or equity. Alderman Kennedy lives those values every single day, and does so in a very thoughtful and deliberative manner. And I'm sad to see you leave your perch as chairman of the Black Caucus, and as a senior alderperson down here, you've been a wonderful friend, a great ally, a true mentor. But I look forward, as the alderman from the 21st said, looking forward to seeing you in front of us as our clerk and as the board's first African-American clerk. I think that's another wonderful accomplishment to add to your already illustrious resume. So thank you for all of your years of service, to our city of St. Louis and to the Board of Aldermen. It truly is absolutely remarkable. I'm celebrating my 10th year as of next week down here. I cannot imagine serving for quite as long as you have. And if I am so fortunate that the voters entrust me to come down here for that long, I hope that I'm able to harness the energy of the young people that you've been able to do to make some wonderful movements, and utilizing my knowledge and wisdom at that point in time to make an even greater impact in this city. So thank you again for all of your wonderful words of wisdom and your kindness over the years.
Alderman from 27.
Hey, I'm not going to say Honorable Terry Kennedy, Alderman, because I know you before you were the Honorable Terry Kennedy. And I want to thank you for embracing, encouraging, and educating the youth within our communities, because my granddaughter benefited from those programs. It was funny because when she started the African dance, she used to psych her grandpa and I and say, my legs hurt me so bad. And her mom was like, no, she'll be okay. And she became one of the best students they had in the African dance class. So I want to thank you because you always looked at the positive in everybody. You never condemned or put down. You always encouraged. You always gave us a history lesson. And the only thing I ask that you do is answer the phone when I call. Thank you so much.
Alderman from the 23rd.
Also, I'm taking over public safety, which I'm sure you'll have some advice. But mostly I stood up to ask that we put this in bank. I know John said...
Been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th, that we make this resolution in bank. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, please create another copy of this resolution in bank.
That's what I'm going to say. If you could have the new clerk make a copy of the...
Yeah. Alderman from the 17th.
They always say that it's lonely at the top, and I'd prefer to be on top of other things in the seniority list. It's starting to feel old, but Terry came down here about a year after me, and now there's a big jump between me and my colleague from the 22nd and the 10th, so it's getting a little lonely up at the top. I guess kids like to do or respect their fathers or mothers, and so they end up growing up a lot talking at a dinner table about what their father or mother does at work, and it kind of rubs off on them. And more often than not, whether it's a cop or a firefighter or a doctor or a lawyer or even a city politician, there tends to be something that the parent brings out in you. St. Louis has a long tradition, as I think other cities do in either states and at the federal level. We see that in multiple presidents who have had relatives run. Here in the city, we've certainly have had that over the years. When I first came down here, I was going through the list. There was alderman from the 3rd was a Bosley. The alderman from the 19th was a Roberts, whose brother served as well. There was a Alderman Clay from the 26th ward, whose brother was a congressman. We had 2 villas on the board at the time. Shortly after me, after my arrival, we had the son of a mayor, Alderman Conway, joined us. We had a son of another politician, Alderman Slay, who became alderman. Of course, much of that has changed, and there's not too many of us legacies down here anymore. I look through the list here. I guess I'm here, and Alderwoman Hubbard has a bit of a family legacy in politics, and Alderwoman Martin does as well. And of course, the Bosleys are still well represented down here. So we've gone from a period where we had 9 to now we're down to 4. When I came down, I really didn't have the honor of serving much with Alderman Kennedy's father, who preceded him. But before I came down, my dad told me what a wonderful man Sam Kennedy was. I was down here, and Sam was ill most of the brief time we had together. It was shortly thereafter that he died. He had been chairman of the HUD's committee for a considerable amount of time prior to that, and his service on the HUD's committee and his tenure down here led to the naming of the room after him. So I feel like I've always shared that with Terry, that family legacy thing, and I know a lot of people today think that's kind of not so good, kind of the professional politician, but I felt like I learned a lot from my dad, and I felt that he told me when I did something stupid down here, I was doing something stupid, and I think Terry probably had perhaps not as much benefit of his father because mine was alive while I was down here, but I think for many years he shared that benefit. One of the nice things about being an alderman or an elected official is just the ability to pursue that thing that is of your interest. The city touches a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Everything from airports to the water to our health. We're now even starting to, as a result of our colleague from the 25th, we're going to start looking a little bit more into education now. But we touch people in so many different ways, and when you come down here, it gives you the opportunity to begin focusing and looking at a subject and becoming really good at it, or perhaps knowledgeable at it. It gives you the ability or flexibility to pursue things that is of great interest to you. And when I think of Alderman Kennedy's career down here, I can't think of anyone or anything that at least to me screams his attention and kind of his legacy and his life work was what he's done in civil rights and opportunity, creation of opportunity. He and other elected officials over the years have worked very hard in that area. He's the one who has the continuity, though, so I have to attribute so much to him being down here. Others have certainly worked along the way. But his pursuit of that over a long, long period of time has made a difference, and I think it is something that our city will make our city stronger, has made our city stronger. We bring our life experiences down here, and we have so many different perspectives. So much of our life's opinions and perspectives are framed by what we did as kids and what our family was like and everything. you get down here and all of a sudden you start running into people with different life experiences, and they open your eyes up to a different way of viewing things. And Terry, your work in creation of opportunity for minorities, whether it's in participation or employment opportunities, certainly has brought a perspective that I've learned from, and I appreciate that. Bless it. It's been great working with you.
Join me in welcoming Judge Edwards.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the board, I pause just for a moment here to let Alderman Ogilvie know that I celebrate your accomplishments as well. Thank you. I have had the enviable opportunity to know Alderman Kennedy for nearly 50 years, high school, college, and now. Terry has always been the same. We can describe him as cerebral, articulate, intellect. I like to describe him as diplomat. Alderman Kennedy, on behalf of all of us in the city of St. Louis who have benefited from your works, from police to civil rights, we thank you. We're grateful. And on behalf of the city of St. Louis, I don't have that authority to do that, but I will take it. Mayor, she just gave it to me. On behalf of the mayor, on behalf of all of the employees, on behalf of the whole city and our region, you have made a wonderful difference. We appreciate you. We look forward to working with you for another 20 years. And let me just say, for those of you, Joe, thank you so very much, Alderman Rhodey, for making that point. For 51 years, there has been a Kennedy in this chambers. Sam Kennedy for 20 and Terry Kennedy for 31. What an awesome run. Congratulations, my friend.
Not over yet. Alderman from the 20th.
Thank you, Mr. President. In a time where our national politics, the polarization of politics nationally and often here locally is so extreme, and even though we're all typically in the same party down here, we are often polarized on issues. Alderman Kennedy, you lead us by example by differing in opinion with humility and with humanity, and reminding us all that we all have our own history that we bring to the table. I thank you for showing us all how to disagree with humanity. I thank you for your service, and I thank you for taking my calls and helping guide me from time to time on issues. And I look forward to continuing to serve with you down here and looking to you for guidance in the future. Thank you so much.
Alderman from 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President. And little known fact, Terry and I shared an office my first 5 or 6 years down here, and I think I completely confused him when I took the file cabinets out and put a refrigerator in. He'd never seen that before. But it was quite an experience. I learned a lot from being with you, Terry. Again, what we're losing here is one of our most profound pontificators on the panel. A little alliteration. But also something I noticed that he's always been gracious and to everyone, and wanted to thank everyone. I noticed reading the courtesy resolution calendar today, he pulled the Michael McMillan. He has more courtesy resolutions on the panel today than anyone I've ever seen. 27 to be exact. It's a new record. Let's congratulate Terry.
Alderman from the 3rd. Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, members of the board and everyone. I have not had the pleasure to really serve with Alderman Kennedy for more than 2 years, and I know my father has had the pleasure for a very, very long time, and I can appreciate everything that you have done for this city. And whenever I ask my father questions about what about this or how about this, he always says in his interesting voice, "Did you ask Terry Kennedy yet?" Yeah. And he's always interested, and not to say that everybody's opinion isn't valued, but there are a few that we know speak volume. And every single time there's an issue, I think, within the city that we all, as Alderwoman Spencer said, are polarized on, and we have all these different ideas of what is the point of direction that we want to go in for this city. You always have a way of articulating things to where we all can come to not necessarily some type of an agreement, but an understanding. And that's one of the biggest things I think that we will miss, is being able to have someone who can actually bring everybody to the table. That's extremely important in a body of individuals who are supposed to direct hundreds of thousands of people within the city into a new direction. And it's unfortunate, but to have you right next to us and still have you to be able to counsel us is extremely important and very appreciative. I wish you well in your new journeys and everything that you have planned. Hopefully you get a lot of vacationing. I know this can make you grow gray hairs. I got a lot going on under my chin. You bring a lot of wisdom and experience, and as we know, we have a lot of new individuals that have just come on to the board, so we're losing a lot of our wisdom. We're losing a lot of that experience. Not to say that we are inexperienced, but that experience that you have going through all of these different transitions throughout the city of St. Louis, working with different alder people, and the city itself, how it has transitioned over these last 50 years. We need people that have an understanding of the way that things used to be, the way things are, and the way that things need to be. So I appreciate everything that you've done. I appreciate your family lending us his mind. You can lose your mind in this Board of Aldermen. So, we really, really appreciate everything. I appreciate everything that you've taught me. As soon as we got into the Board of Aldermen, you pulled us to the side and tried to teach us the values that we needed to be able to move around within this board so we can make the correct decisions and be able to, win over our colleagues on certain things. You have been very, very helpful in ensuring that we have and understand the rules and the way that we should once again maneuver. I appreciate everything that you've done for us, and this is certainly one of those times where you feel some type of way in your heart, so I appreciate you, sir. Thank you for your services.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, President Reed. Alderman Kennedy, to you and to your family, thank you. You've truly made a difference in our city. And one of the things that I know about you is that you only speak when absolutely necessary, usually in short, and you lead through example and through quiet persuasion. Thank you for that. Your style has made a difference, and our city is better for you. Thank you to you. Thank you to your family.
Alderman from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. And Alderman Kennedy, we're going to miss you a lot. You're one of the few people that really mentors young people at this board and mentors new people who come in. And I don't know that you always know how much of an impact that has on so many of us that have come in over the last few years. In my first 6 months in office, we had both civilian oversight and minimum wage, which were extremely contentious bills. And the grace that you handle such hard situations, committee hearings where a fight breaks out, and you are the person to restore that common order and keep the policy center. And having a minimum wage bill that we weren't sure how we were getting through the politics of it all.
And being there to have that open line of communication. I probably called you 10 times a day some days, and you picked up that phone to figure out how we could get this bill passed through the board. And so your legacy will go on for a very long time, even though you're not here, voting on bills anymore. You will still be present, and the impact that you have made on so many of us here will be passed on, and we will be passing it on to the folks who come after us.
Alderman from the 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Alderman Kennedy, I just want to say thank you. I met you down here back in the 80s when your father was alderman, sitting next to the Red Villa, and a lot of the aldermen and alderwomen that passed through here. And I cannot go without mentioning Joanne Wayne's name, and Mary Ross, a few others, the Mayor Clarks and that. But you were like your father. I watched your father and read it. I mean, you talk about aldermen that communicated. I've never seen aldermen get upset with each other. Everything had kind of a flow to it, and everything had rules. But I think you learned. Your dad would be very proud of you. You got a great, not only a great education, but, which is hard nowadays, a great deal of common sense. I think you've been very blessed with your vision. I know you fought for years to get a civilian review board. And I know you always had the best interests of the city. And I've learned that through you since I was down here working for the city. But I just want to thank you. I know I'm going to see you again, and I'll still be pestering you. Thank you.
Alderman from the 6th.
President, I just wanted to rise and join the ranks of my colleagues to thank you for your time here at City Hall. You've definitely helped me learn and grow in this position. I've learned from some mistakes and have always enjoyed conversations with you and listening to you talk on a wide variety of issues. And to the Alderwoman from the 15th point, we couldn't have done minimum wage without you. Literally, if you don't know, Alderman Kennedy was sick as a dog that day and was sitting in the back with a trash can and came out whenever we needed him to vote. And so you don't get dedication like that, and a lot of folks looking forward to working with you as clerk and appreciate the time I was able to spend with you so far.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further? Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. The most honorable Terry Kennedy. Well, I would have to say I'm going to miss our knockdown, drag-out fights in the Black Caucus meetings. And I'll never forget when you stood on the desk to try to make me shut up. That didn't happen for real. You guys know Terry Kennedy. I've been down here 16 years now. And I've had the pleasure of being mentored by you. And it's been often said when I came to the Board of Aldermen 16 years ago, I was kind of immature maybe, didn't really understand, no one asked you for an opinion, certainly didn't fully understand the inner workings of the Board of Aldermen. I will hope that I've come a long way thanks to your leadership. I know I have. I can say that. I was a fighter. There was no debate I was unwilling to take on. But over time, maturity set in. And through watching your leadership style, it's made me a better legislator and a better man. You're not one who talks a lot down here at the Board of Aldermen. But when you do, you say it in a way that everybody listens to the point where you can almost hear a pin drop. That is exceptional leadership. I am truly blessed to be able to work with you. I met you way before I got involved in politics. You were humble then. You're always a listening ear, always willing to encourage people. always willing to help people get to the next level. And you don't always say it by just telling them what to do. You help talk them through it so they can figure it out for themselves. And that's the characteristics of a really good leader. I am so blessed I could probably stand up here for at least a half an hour and tell you how much you meant to me. When you say things, they're meaningful and they're impactful. And oftentimes they change the trajectory of what we're trying to do here for the greater good. And I'm glad you're not totally leaving us. You will still be here so that when we need that listening ear, we can count on you, I'm sure, because you will never change. You're always Terry Kennedy from the first day I've ever met you to this day. Thank you so much for being the great man that you are.
Any further discussions? Alderman from the first.
Mr. President, members of the board. First of all, I want to say thank you to Terry's twin brother, Gary. I love that rendition. For those of you who do not know it, he says it once in a while, that is his twin brother. Probably the more talented of the two, but I'm just prejudiced like that. I'm going to speak as, when I came here, I was the Alderwoman of the 20th Ward. I'm back in my seat, just moved back into my office, intend to get my seniority if the people do right and undo the wrong. First, I want to thank you in redistricting, there are 5 people in this room. Only you and I voted the right way. The other people in this room voted to quash people's votes, to marginalize people. So I heard the alderman from the 17th talk about coming a couple of years before you. I came 2 years behind you. Right now I have 18 years instead of 28 years because of what was done. And then it's not me, it's my community, because that's what everything is about down here. It's about your community. But I'm a pretty tenacious person. You were here when I told them many years ago that I would come back. And I've come back just with that purpose, to serve my community as long as they want me to. That's what you did. That's what your father did. When other people tell our stories, they leave out things. Leroy Tice was one of the first black state reps in the state of Missouri. They don't know our story a lot of times. That's a thing that you've always done, is you've been a storyteller. You tell our history in a way that people can hear it. Our history is important. Since I've been down here and I look around and I see how our history is not around here, that's important to me, that at some point we correct that. Slowly but surely, you did work on things to correct things. Being the first of anything is a hard thing. Being the first clerk and a black clerk in the year 2019 is ridiculous. We are a city that is majority African American, yet we only have 11 black aldermen. That's wrong. You and I have always worked together really well, gotten along as you do with anybody, but understood our importance in being here. So much so that when they redistricted me and gerrymandered me, you, who hardly ever gets into politics, turned around to me and said, "Don't you leave here," okay? And I knew how important it was, but I also know how important it is not to cut backdoor deals and be submissive to people. I will not ever do that. The difference in me being a black female and being a white male alderman is the difference in me being number 1 in seniority or number 2 in seniority and number 12. But I'll take the number 12 because I am never going to be submissive to anybody. And for those who have voted wrong, they should tomorrow right that wrong. If they don't, shame on them. One of the things about making a mistake, and I've watched if you thought you did something, is going back and redoing it and correcting it. Not saying you're sorry, but how do I correct it? I've been working with you for the Citizens Review for a lot of years. And you know I never voted for it because I kept pushing for it, not because I wasn't for it. I just really wanted it to be the best it could be. And I've watched us take small steps to make it the best it could be. I've watched other things. I've watched you be the chair of the caucus a couple of times, okay? And for many, many years, I've watched you build up the 18th Ward. I've watched you be a black man and all that means in a society that likes to undercut black men, okay? I watch your interpersonal relationship with your family. I call all the people who have learned to beat the drums and dance. Those are your children. You and I don't have children, but we have children. You are somebody I consider a very important person on this board, quiet but determined. I don't think people who are talking about you really understand all of who you are, because they don't understand your commitment to black culture, black history, black people, making a difference, having a different style. They don't mean that you're not doing the same thing, but you can have a different style, and that works for you. For me, raising hell rate works for me, okay? Not giving up, pushing, looking around and seeing that every black elected official in the city of St. Louis, citywide, I helped get in office. That means something to me. You also may have worked very quietly behind the scenes. I want everybody to know, yes, I worked for that. So different styles. Appreciate your leadership. Appreciate when I hear young aldermen say, young black male aldermen say that you have been a mentor to them. I appreciate when I hear young white female aldermen say you have been a mentor. This city is appreciate openly gay, outward, say everybody sees me, gay people, men saying you're a mentor. This city is a better place when we have people from all different walks of life, and we're fair. When we're unfair and we cheat and we undermine and we treat one segment of people better than the other and treat one segment of people less than the other, that's what's wrong with our city. You've never gone along with that. I don't know of anything where you voted for to marginalize black people or to even marginalize women or anything like that. So I appreciate that. Those are things that are important to me. Your quiet leadership, your strong leadership, your drums on your desk right now, all of those things I will miss, but I don't have to miss them because you will be our clerk. Again, I do not like that first, because that just really talks to what's wrong with our community, that in 2019 we got a first anything. Okay, that we keep people's seniority based on racism. Those kind of things that are things you have not participated in. I know you sent a good person to follow in your footsteps. I work with him often, so I want to acknowledge that you got a person coming behind you. So you, even though it won't be a Kennedy, it's somebody you have a relationship. I see some of the people that you work with in the audience that I know who you work with that have been your supporters and care about the 18th Ward. So I think much of your work will continue, and that's the thing that you need, is you need continuation of projects. You were able to come and continue with your father's projects. The alderman, the new alderperson, because you have a relationship, you can continue. When you break that continuation up, that is often hard to come back. I've experienced that coming back after being gone for 10 years, getting things started again. So you have had all of that opportunity, and a continuation of 50-something years is something often we don't get in the African-American community because they find ways to steal it from us. So they have not done that for you, and they couldn't have stolen you anyway, because you are the great, honorable Terry Kennedy, and I salute you.
Alderman from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. You know, I've definitely had to get up and say something about Terry if I said something about Alderman Ogilvie leaving. But Terry, I just want to thank you for your service, your leadership, your guidance. I remember when I first came down here, I hadn't put it together that the Kennedy Room was named after your father. It took me a minute. It was almost like something silly, but I just didn't realize the history and the family legacy. And I really respect Alderman Rhodey for bringing that up, because sometimes we're demonized from being, you know, from political families, or as they say, political dynasties or whatever. But sometimes service, it doesn't, you don't choose it, it chooses you, and it's something that's etched in your DNA. So I just want to thank you for your leadership. Thank you for always being loyal and straightforward. You were always one of those type of people. If it was something that went against your core principles or values, you would say, I can't be with you on this, but I won't vote against you, and stuff like that. And that's very rare in politics. Sometimes people have hidden agendas and stuff, but I could always count on you to be exactly where you said you were going to be. And I thank you for that. Alderman Boyd, we got big shoes to fill. We need you to step up and guide the Black Caucus in the right direction, because your leadership has been unmatched, and your poise has been unmatched. I remember times when I would be sitting at my desk doing some of those controversial times with all the stuff I would be carrying, and you just walk over and look at me and say, "Are you okay?" And I wouldn't be okay, but just you coming over talking to me, it helped me become a better leader and a better alder person. So thank you, and I'm glad you're not really leaving us, because we're going to lean on you all the time, and we probably need you now more than ever. So thank you again for your leadership.
Come on. Former Alderman Frank Williams.
All right, good morning. I tried to speak on the floor, but the president said, "No, come on up." So I appreciate that. I've been knowing this brother for a long time. You know, we went to an institution called Sophia House, which was a place that helped a lot of high school students would get ready for college while they were in high school. And Darlene Green, me, and you, and Vervis Jones, Al Chappelle was some of the instructors there, Vervis Jones and Al Chappelle, but Jamala Rogers was there too. That's right. That's exactly right. So it's been a while, and you know, he's been a strong leader ever since I've been here. Just like some of the words that Alderman Boyd has spoke about, he mentored us when we got down here. I mean, he's made us better leaders. I was in the class of 03 with Joe Valmer, Alderman Boyd, and Donna Barringer, and he made us much better in some of the legislation that we tried to submit. And if it wasn't for him, I'm sure we wouldn't have done as well as we did. This brother has a lot of knowledge, as everyone knows, in legislation. But not only that, what makes me very proud of him, the African-American history is so rich that he has. And he makes me feel good as being an African-American man. So I've learned so much from this man. He's made me a better alderman, made me a better person too also, because of his approach and how he really leads and helps and mentors others. So I just want to thank you for all the help you've done with me and others, and we're really going to appreciate you being here so you can continue some of those lessons that you will distribute. So again, thank you for everything you've done for me, brother. Appreciate you.
Jamala Rogers. Yeah. Should we bring your brother up? Let's bring the twin Kennedy up while we're waiting for Jamala to speak. Oh, here, you made it quickly. You made it up there quick.
Good afternoon. I really wasn't expecting to say words because my history with Kennedy goes way, way back. I would almost say the womb, but not quite that far. I think I echo all of the things that people have said about him. I'm just always so proud to see him in his element, which is community service, public service, and knowing the trajectory of what that came from. And so I just feel proud of you today and all that you have accomplished, both here in these chambers and in our community. And I know we always share stories about what we've done, and yeah, and thanks for bringing that up about Sophia House, because I definitely have memories about that. But yeah, good luck, and I'm sure we'll see you down here. I think it's a blessing that you won't be totally separated from here, because I think it's just going to be an extension of your knowledge and wisdom and experience that we'll be able to tap into. So thank you for all your leadership. Thank you.
Good morning. Before I introduce myself, thank you. I'd like to say, Asante Sana, thank you all so very much for your service. Alderman Tyus, and Alderman Stanmore, everyone to whom I know personally and those whom I do not know. I'll tell you, just holding together the seams of a metropolitan city is a daunting task. This is for you. Thank you so much. I am Thaddy, or Gary Kennedy. I am Alderman Terry Kennedy's twin brother, but it wasn't my fault. First and foremost. And I have to say that we both learned a lot about the right of eminent domain. Upon birth, you got to evacuate that area. You know, get out here and live your life. About my brother, thank you so much for accepting him in the womb of this service. The work that he does, the work that's been bestowed on our family came through our family lineage, and we're so glad to be in a position to be able to express that work. I'm so happy and proud of my twin brother here, and again thankful that he's meant so much to all of you and what you've done. Thank you again.
Susan Johnson, the cousin of Alderman Terry Kennedy.
Yes, oh no. Good morning, everyone. My family is behind me like, oh no. Y'all, I have the gift of gab, so we're going to keep it small so I don't get collected in the head. But my cousin right here, the root is our Johnson family. That's our grandfather. His mother, Frances, my dad, Andrew, sister and brother. He is our root for this community. He has been a root. He grew up right up with Uncle Sam, of course, because that's his dad. But I grew up watching them and how they articulated, how they drove, how we campaigned, how we gave to the community, how we loved the community. He took that reign on. I said, "Whoa, boy, you running for your daddy's seat? Do you realize how big his feet are? You got to fill those shoes." He outgrew those shoes. He has just been an amazing man. It doesn't matter he's black. It doesn't matter that he's just an alderman. No, he's never been just he has always been Terry Kennedy, alderman of the 18th Ward. He has always been a black, strong, male role model for everybody. And it didn't matter what your race, creed, color, or ethnicity, religion, none of that mattered. He's always been that kind of anchored person. And I say that from my heart. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I call it an honor to say that you're my family. And I'm ready to cry. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Is that anybody else? Now, oh yes.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, my name is Haile Emerson. I am the great-nephew of Alderman Kennedy and the great-grandson of Alderman Samuel Kennedy. And as a young black man growing up, I've noticed all the changes, all the great changes that has happened in our community. From simple things like walking down the street and seeing that the park has been renewed to where it's safe, that we don't have to avoid rusty nails or pieces of glass, to big things like the entire North Sarah development, And the 51-year reign, I have only watched a fraction of it, because very small fraction. And though it was a small fraction of his reign, it has been the entirety of my life. So I'd like to say Asante Sana. I love you. Thank you. And I look forward to continuing to look forward to you and to look up to you as a role model, as an uncle, and as family.
Okay, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you know we're going to see another Kennedy in politics. That was just beautiful. That was just beautiful. And that's it.
I'm the 18th Ward Democrat Committee man, and I tell you that I've known Alderman Kennedy before Alderman Kennedy was Alderman Kennedy. He was so I knew him when he was a teenager, and I had a great opportunity to also work with his father. His father was a mentor to me, and his father was well grounded, and I have had an excellent working relationship with Alderman Kennedy as committee man for the last 23 years. Our ward is going to miss him. He's very easy to work with. I've never met a person that's so calm and cool and easy to work with. So his shoes, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, coming in as alderman, I won't be able to fill his shoes, but I will get a lot of advice from him. Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Kennedy.
Anything for we're good. Tell you, I am just so honored to share this dais and this podium with the likes of Alderman Terry Kennedy, our majority floor leader and friend of mine and others. You know, I was just jotting down some of the words and phrases that were used today to describe Alderman Kennedy. Leader, educator, counselor, change agent, historian, great communicator, visionary, a person of wisdom, humility and humanity. I can't read my own handwriting sometimes. I have to stop using shorthand. Champion of equity and equality, a committed public servant. Terry Kennedy, those phrases and more describe you. And I am so honored to have known you all the time that I've known you. When I first came to the Board of Aldermen, you took me under your wings and helped to train me there on this floor. You helped me to understand legislation and what was happening and how I could work jointly with others to create a better product. And later, you, former Alderman Mike McMillan and former Alderman Freeman Bosley Sr., and Alderwoman April Ford Griffin took me under your wings and ran me for president of the Board of Aldermen. Each and every one of you were infinitely more qualified and suited to do the job. But instead of doing that, you took me, a person that was coming into the board, and elevated me to this position. Because you were always doing that. That's part of your character and that's part of what you bring to this board. See, part of being a leader is putting the needs and the wants of the group ahead of your own. And you've done that consistently. You've put yourself in the way of danger for the betterment of our community. And that's what a leader is. It's not a comfortable position to be in. To be the clerk of this Board of Aldermen will take a great leader. To put us on track when you look at some of the many things we have to go through in this next couple years. Everything from airport privatization to city-county merger, all of these things are going to take some great leadership to keep this board working together. Leadership that you possess. So on behalf of the Board of Aldermen, my family and friends, and people who may not have ever known you or may never ever get to know you, I want to thank you for all your works, the works that have made our school systems better, the works that have strengthened our communities, the works that have made a more equitable public safety system for all who may come in contact with it. We all know that there's still more work to be done, and that's why you're sticking around, and I'm glad for that. I think your father would look at your legacy that you've laid and the trails that you've blazed, and he'd be so proud of you. And again, on behalf of the citizens of the city of St. Louis, my family and friends, thank you for a job well done. Let's give Alderman Kennedy a big round of applause.
Well, Alderman, we want to present you with an award, and this was specifically designed to fit and tailor you. Yes, it's very bland.
Well, okay. Just like it, we got it. Yeah, just like it.
If y'all remember what I said earlier, African culture teaches us to count the number of man. Again, he has served as alderman for 11,315 days. There's a book written by Elijah Muhammad, and he said that if man wanted to travel to the sun, it would take 11,300 days. So this award is in the symbolism of a sun. And in the middle of this award, it has his name because he is the sun. And he is a prophetic voice for our city. And it reads, presented to the distinguished gentleman from North City, the Honorable Terry Kennedy, in recognition of your service to the St. Louis community as a public servant, activist, community organizer, and civil rights advocate. Presented to you on behalf of the city of St. Louis, President Reed and myself. Thank you. Please don't.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you're in trouble. First, I would like to, yes. First, I would like, Mr. President, members of the board, first I would like to thank you all for sitting here through all of this. I've been on that side and sitting in those chairs. Sometimes this can be an arduous task, just sitting up here and hearing one person after the next. I appreciate it and am most honored that you have said the things that you have said. But since this is my last opportunity to stand here as an alderman and say a few words, I thought I would just write down a few ideas. If I have done anything that you have liked in any way whatsoever as alderman, then know it was solely my idea and my idea alone. No one else had anything else to do with it, and it was the brilliance that came from inside of me. If I've done anything that you didn't like or that you thought was wrong and incorrect, then know it was not my idea. And I was tricked into doing it. That's all that's written on the paper. I'd like to thank those who came out today. Kimberly Gardner over here to my left. We have Khatib Waheed. You already heard from Jamala Rogers. Mavis Thompson, our mayor. What am I missing? And other, where's that Frank Williamson? He's still here. We've known each other since about age 14. Okay, about age 14, and we're only, 17 now. Everybody comes from something. We just don't appear out of anywhere. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before. Their work has provided us a legacy to follow and a pathway to forge. There are those that were here in this chamber that had a profound impact upon, you say, Terry Kennedy. The elegant Mary Ross that would sway across this room. The sometimes very tough Joanne Wayne,
who, when I was sitting there and I had first got here, came up behind me. I didn't even see her. She moved so stealthily. Next thing I know, I got pushed in the back of the head, and she said, "Boy, I can see your daddy in you, but your mama is there too." Now, my mama was a little fire. She said, "So get up and say something." So I got up and said something. Sitting next to me was Daisy Mae McFarland. We had Bertha Mitchell later. Willie Williams sitting in the back. Of course, Villa was still here at the time. Abusi was here. Who am I missing? Dave Keneally was here. Geraldine Osborne, McGuire. All of these individuals were here, and boy, could they talk. You think y'all could. And it wasn't even a TV here at the time. But they had things to say. In those days, if you came late to a committee hearing, the chair would say, the meeting started at 9, not 9:15. Well, they meant business. There were no TVs here at the time. But everything starts someplace. There's an African proverb that says, there's a proverb that says it has continued here in African American community. If you ask an African American where they're going, they'll tell you where they've been. In our concept, time is a continuum. We don't see them in short little chunks. You can't understand where I am now if you don't understand where I came from. And so then to understand the table that I'm sitting at today, you got to understand the one that I got up from or the one I didn't have. Or perhaps the street or the trash can I had to eat out of. Samuel Kennedy was a survivor of the East St. Louis race riot. His mother, put those children, which includes my uncle, and his daughter is here now, and her daughter. Where is Cynthia Kennedy here? If our grandmother had not put those children on a raft that she built with her own hands, we would not be alive here today. Miracles. We each come from something. After that riot, the family had nothing. The house was burned down. So Samuel Kennedy and Lester Kennedy did things on the street. My father used to box in those exhibitions. He was born in 1910. So he used to box in those exhibitions on the streets of St. Louis to survive. And one woman told her, you know, my father used to tell us, I used to wrestle bears. Now, you know, we ain't believe that until somebody else, an elder, told her, you know, your father used to wrestle bears to make money in the exhibitions that would come around. The things, if you understand, so for me to sit in these chambers is a miracle based upon the achievement of those who came before us. So out of those roots of having absolutely nothing, our father and uncle, her father, lived in a shanty town on the river here in the city of St. Louis. Literally, cardboard boxes, corrugated steel through the winter. And they would walk from the riverfront, because there were then families, the Urban League helped establish those survivors out in Kinloch. They would walk along the train line, the train tracks from downtown or East St. Louis to Kinloch. That's what Samuel Kennedy did. Big shoes to fill. He raised a family out of nothing from where he came, and then he became a union organizer. Big shoes to fill. And my feet are physically bigger than my father's. He had like a 10 and I'm a 12, but he had big shoes to fill. Our mother is a Roussan. The Roussans were, in 1720, a Frenchman by the name of Philippe Francis Renault brought 500 Africans from Haiti straight up the Mississippi to DeSoto. On my mother's side, we're one of those descendants. They bought them to be slaves and pick up coal in DeSoto, Missouri. From there, they made their way to St. Louis. And somehow, those descendants, Francis Johnson, met Samuel Kennedy, and boy, did they get it on. 5 children came from that. And so I have my twin brother, Gary Fadi, which I am 19 minutes older than him. That's a world of difference.
Oh, God,
Where's my other sister? My sister Azima, that is one of the descendants, and my sister Joyce, who is right behind, this is Dr. Joyce Kennedy, we have to put that on there, who has come down from Chicago, and she surprised me. I didn't know she was coming. But from those roots, the family engaged in trying to make life better. So my sister Joyce was involved with Norman Say and the sit-ins, the civil rights movement here in the city of St. Louis. This woman right here, Joyce Kennedy. And so then, it's in the blood. My father was a union organizer in the days when union workers would have to go to the picket line with baseball bats because the companies would hire thugs to beat them up. And so our father would leave the house to go to these picket lines in those days to fight for a dime increase. And one year they got real ambitious and said they fought for a quarter increase an hour. It's in the blood. But it is not just struggle in the blood, there's care. That's what's in there, care for others. And hopefully you can feel that in the family that is up here. You have to know where we came from to understand where we're at today. Ask a African American where they're going, they tell you where they're from. And so then, for me to talk anything about me, I got to tell you where I'm from. How Samuel Kennedy and Francis Johnson and how our great-grandparents, Samuel Horn and Ida Horn, were held in slavery, and how they gently found the exact and perfect tree branch big enough to clock their slave owner and run into freedom. Without that, we wouldn't be here. Samuel Horn and Ida Horn. They had our grandmother, Catherine Horn. So yes, all of our grandparents in my generation are the first generation born free. And I lived with our grandfather. He was born in 1883. He died in 1973. We lived with him to age 18. Our sister Joyce had a lot more time. To understand how we stand here today, you got to understand the table that we came from. I'm just telling you a little story. These are the stories of St. Louis that enriches all of us when we know them. My conversations with Alderman Cone was about his experience being who he is in this city, and then how I can be of support, even if it was just a listening ear, and then to let him know not that that other cultures in the world don't have the problems that Europe has about what you're struggling with. To recognize that the world is bigger than just America and the cultures that we all bring to this table that enriches where this place is. And so then, I stand here on the precipice of change. Change is inevitable. Don't ever sit up and talk about, it will never change. Change today is not what yesterday was. Tomorrow will not be like today. It will change. So the question is not whether change is coming. The question is, can we change it in the direction that we like? Can we change it in a more equitable and humane way? Because change is inevitable. Our elders have taught us that ain't nothing constant but change. And so if you put your hat just on how things are today, you're in trouble, because tomorrow's coming. And that sun going to come up in a slightly different angle than the day before. Change is inevitable. It has been my honor to serve the 18th Ward for 30 years. 31. I was 2 when I came. I was just mature for my age.
You're just 3 now.
I'm just 4. I'm just 4 now. Yeah, 19. I'm 19 minutes older than him. And so then I have constituents that come out, Pam Talley, come on you all, Richard Ellis, Barbara. I'm looking over here, Al Willis, Carol Johnson, we have Ken Hutchison, who am I missing? And a bunch of other folks. Some up in the gallery. I thank you for electing us each one of those years. I said us. Not me, us. I believe that being a twin gives us a unique perspective. I can say I actually know a person. I have known this man since before we were born. Let that sink in. But it helps you, in my opinion, if you actually accept that idea, to have a more collective concept. The West Africans say that a twin is a spirit too big to be in one body. And so it takes two. A spirit too large to be in one body. And so then, that concept, we're just extending all of our work. We're all just pieces of an idea that we each are a specific aspect of. And so if we look at it that way and quit looking at our differences, we can find the commonality and there work and find answers. There's a tendency in the culture to always find the difference. You different from me, you ain't got your hair like me, your eyes different, your nose different, your clothes different. As opposed to saying, well, we both have 2 eyes, a nose, and some lips. You could go whichever way, but we oftentimes choose the other. It was my effort to unite the community, to be a point of unity in the community, to not talk about what we can't do. So when residents came and said to me, you know, we want to lift the sky higher, I said, okay, well, let's talk about that. We may not be able to lift it right now, but I tell you what we can do. We can lift the roof of this building. What I attempted to do was to try to find answers together, to not squash aspirations or to destroy optimism, but to encourage and help to find both the realism, the solution, and to show that with these hands we can achieve if we work together. And I believe that we've done that in the 18th. We found ways. We got our difference, and some of us are still mad at each other, but we work on things together. We find the commonality. And in finding that commonality, we have helped to raise the community and ultimately this city. We knew we had some important issues to address, and so we tried to do it in a way that people will listen and hopefully support. We didn't always get it, but we got some. And that is a victory unto itself. It is my hope that this city and this world is different and better than what it was when we came in. When I was elected in 1989, I was offered the seat. They held the seat that my father sat in, and that's what I sit in right there. All of those older people felt it was good enough for me to sit there. They weren't say, Terry, this we held for you. And so that is the seat that Samuel Kennedy held. There was no intention to build a dynasty. We had a newspaper say, all of these family dynasties. That is not what the Kennedys were trying to do. I was on the more radical end of things. I was the one out there on those protests. We were the ones out there picketing for inclusion of black studies and the rest of that in the schools. I wasn't talking about being in this conservative business. Come on. It was a group of, no, believe me, those that can affirm this. I didn't even have a suit. Couldn't stand a tie. So, what happened? A group of elders came to me. And they sat me, you know, in your community, you know what the elders do. They bring you in, say, come to my kitchen. That's when you're in trouble. Or they got something important to say. So they said, well, I want to talk to you in the kitchen. So I thought it was like it was 20 of them in there. And they said, we want you to run. Who? We want you to run. Y'all must be talking about, you're the only one in here, son. We want you. Why? They said, because you're active in the community. You got some things to say. What's that? This is not my arena. I have no aspirations of running for political office. And they said, that's another reason why we want you. Because it's not a career goal for you. You'll come here and try to do something honestly. And so many of those elders are no longer with us. One of those was DeVern Calloway, our first black female state representative. She brought me in her house, in her kitchen, and said, Tammy why you're here. She had a deep voice. And I gave her my platform. She didn't say anything to me. It's like I had cussed the woman out. She turned her back to me, went to the telephone, called my mother and said, Francis, we got us a winner. And so then, in 1989, we did not have the support of our ward organization. Yeah, can you believe it? They didn't support us. They had somebody else. We entered into the race of 9 people. 9. We won and have been there for 30 years. But life changes. Things change. The sun comes up different tomorrow. There'll be a different part of crescent of the moon tomorrow. It is time to move on. We're not looking for another Kennedy to be in the position. We just look for the best person to be there. We're not trying to create a dynasty. We're trying to find people who truly love the community and will commit their lives to it. That's what we're looking for. That's what our parents have taught us. That's what the elders before us, the legacy that they have left for us. And so then if we could offer that in some kind of way to the larger community, it is our honor to do so. And though I will not be sitting in that seat, I'm still going to be here and still have ideas. There's an African proverb that says, if somebody says something that you agree with, you don't have to speak. There's another that says, speak quickly and to the point, for if you say less, you're sure to make less mistakes. And so I've kept that as an axiom. Just say less. Get to the point. Sit down. Shut up. Not that that works for other people. It just works for me. I didn't try to force it on anybody else. It just works for me. There is another proverb that says, African proverb that says, if you're in leadership position and you cannot do anything for the people because of the conditions, at least listen to them. For they will say that they have had a full audience. And so whether I could do anything or not, I can at least listen. And sometimes for our community, just listening is healing. That they got somebody in a position of authority that will at least listen and hear their hurts and their pains and their struggles. And though sometimes it's a lot, it is important to do. And I would urge us to keep that listening ear for each other. It makes a big difference where you can feel and care. And so I am happy today to stand here with my family and the other residents of the 18th Ward. I am so pleased, and those who have supported us down through the years, because we were not supported by the establishment either, y'all. And though when you came here, you might thought I'm establishment, but you better come talk to me, and you'll find out. If you really do, you'll find out that our ideas are far different than that. But because of that, we stand here today, in my opinion, as a miracle and a testament to the legacies and the struggle of those before us. So to introduce, this is my cousin Susan. This is my other brother over here, Ezra. This is my, what do I want to call you? Nephew-in-law. He is married to my niece, and that's family. This is my nephew. His mother was in my house. I helped raise his mother. My cousin back here is another Kennedy. That's Kasia Steele. Then we have, this is my cousin Cynthia's daughter. Where's Cynthia? Back over here. I'm very proud of all of them. My other niece here who just recently had a baby. Candisa. Then this is Jamala. You already met my sister Azim. McKinney in the back, McKinney Kennedy. You'll see their pictures. I kept them in the office. These two were in my household. When my sister became ill, I became an instant father. But that's what we do in the community. We just don't throw our children in the street. We take them in. That's what we do. And so then, these are mine, right there. Then my other nephew here, Tess Faji. We have a niece down here. We have, who else is there? Am I missing anybody behind? Now, believe me, we're in no place without the women behind us. I'm not scared of that. Because these women are powerful. So I want to bring forward, come on up here. For these 30 years, this was my campaign manager. And she told a guy one time, if you say one more thing, I'm going to do something to you. Now, you see how short she is, right? So he didn't believe her. So this is out on the poll. This early election, like 1991. And so then he kept talking. So she went into her purse and pulled out her water gun and shot him straight in the face. He said, oh, girl. And then they became close friends. But in those days, you had to have a tenacious group on when you were dealing with the polls, because you didn't have cell phones. And you had to have people who were really willing to do the work for you. This Veronica Banks, this little short dynamite dynamo, was my and is my campaign manager. Thank you. I can hold on to money and she can spend it. Have I missed anyone? Coalicia. It's my brother's wife here, Coalicia, right here. Come on, just be seen. And then, of course, I had an older brother, Ronald Kennedy, who passed several years ago, who also worked in our campaigns. The thing to remember, everyone, is that when you're in political office, it's not the individual, it's the family. And so then after 21 years with my father and 30 years with me, 51 years, it's time for the family to take a rest. And though we appreciate the opportunity and hope that we have made a difference in some kind of way, it is time to move on. And so we made that decision as a collective to do so. And we're at that point in history, at the precipice of change. We stand on the shoulders who come before us. To know where we're at now, you had to understand where we came from. The struggles and the toils, the work and the aspirations, the victories and the tears I've tried to share with you. We're not, quote, an affluent family. We come from the streets like everybody else, and we have just gone from that. So Samuel Kennedy was not some rich whatever. He was a factory worker at the Burkhart foam factory, making foam for the seats in your car, and became a union leader, and then became an alderman. His brother became the city's leading black bail bondsman. That was Hollister Kennedy, my cousin's father. It gives you a little of our story of how we got here, and why we stand here, I believe, is a miracle today. I appreciate your listening and staying in your seats and not walking out, and putting up with our opportunity to share the story of one family in this city, a family that has been here since at least 1720. A story that meant we were here when it was a French territory, a story to tell, a history to share, knowledge to impart. If we've said anything or done anything, as our elders have said, if we have said anything and have done anything of beauty and value, which is what we've tried to do, if we've done anything of beauty and value, all praise is due to the ancestors, for only the mistakes were mine. Thank you.
Now we, yeah. Now we're going to have Alderman Oglesby and the full board to come over so we can do the photos. Don't go anywhere. Now if we can have the members of the board to approach the dais, Alderman Oglesby and his family.
I don't know, I'm not tall enough. Yeah, I'll go around. Been moved and seconded that we accept our courtesy resolution calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. With that, we'll return to our regular order of business. Introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Introduction. Oh, no. Alderman from 27th.
As Fred Cersei with the Plumbers Union.
Alderman from 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to have Patrick Brown with Ameren, Missouri as my honored guest today.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from 22nd.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I'd like to have my honored guest, Dr. Fred Echols. Dr. Echols has served in the U.S. Navy as a medical doctor for 7 years, most recently worked in St. Louis County Health Department. Today, he is our Director of the Health and Hospitals and the first medical doctor to lead our health department in 2 decades.
We're also very lucky to have with us today Kara Clark and Matt Frederick. Thank you so much for joining us today. Any further? Alderman from 13th.
President, members of the board, I'd like to have my honored guest, Jeff Hines, from the Carpenters Regional Council. Thank you.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Wait for the Alderman from the 18th. Alderman from 22nd, will you make the motion for the approval of the minutes?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I move for approval of the minutes for January the 25th and February the 1st, 2019.
Moved by Alderman from the 22nd, seconded by Alderman from the 10th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, and C of the agenda and have been placed in the aldermen's mailboxes.
We will dispense with line item 7. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any? Alderman from the 22nd.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to place Board Bill 222 on the perfection calendar.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Place Board Bill 222 at the tail end of the regular perfection calendar.
So noted.
Alderman from the 22nd, would you like that the perfection or perfection consent calendar?
Perfection.
All right. Madam Clerk, please make note. Any further? Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to take Board Bill 191 from the third reading informal calendar and move it to the third reading and consent.
Okay. She's moving 191 to the third reading consent. All right. To the regular third reading calendar. And 222 was to the regular third reading calendar also.
Right.
That's for perfection.
Any further bills? Any further bills? With that, we will dispense with line items 10 through 14. Perfection consent.
Board Bill 236, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, surface, and subsurface rights for vehicles, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in a section of Spring beginning approximately 445 feet south of Forest Park and continually southwardly 30 feet to its terminus at Market Interstate 64 in the city. Board Bill 192, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance establishing and creating a PUD district for portions of city blocks 3926 and 4585 to be known as Olive West Planned Unit Development District. Board Bill 233, sponsored by Alderman Ornowitz, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Department of Human Services to accept funding in the amount of not to exceed $15,000 from the Oasis Institute and enter into and execute agreements with the Oasis Institute in substantially the same form as Exhibit A and Exhibit B, attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference for the purpose of providing 2 fall prevention programs for older adults, appropriating said funds, and authorizing the Director of Department of Human Services upon approval of Board of Estimate and Apportionment to expend such funds as permitted by the agreements and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 234, sponsored by Alderman Ornowitz, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Department of Human Services to enter into and execute an agreement with the Missouri Association of Area Agency on Aging for the purpose of providing certain home and community-based services in an amount not to exceed $17,000, appropriating said funds and authorizing the Director of the Department of Human Services upon approval of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment to expend such funds as permitted by the agreement and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 235, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, an ordinance amending Section 1 of Ordinance 67588 to exclude such blocks in North Kings Highway between Delmar Boulevard and Wells Avenue from the 18th Ward Liquor Control District. That is the extent of perfection consent.
Alderman from the 22nd, would you handle the motion for the perfection consent calendar?
Mr. President, I move the four mentioned bills be passed on the perfection consent calendar.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 1st. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And Madam Clerk, it appears that on the informal calendar, Board Bill 222 was it showed on the third reading informal calendar. That bill should have been on the perfection informal calendar. So please place Board Bill 222 on the perfection calendar.
So noted.
Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 222, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the city to issue and sell its general obligation bonds in various series in an aggregated principal amount of not to exceed $40 million, of which no more than $6 million in aggregated principal amount shall be issued annually for the purpose of stabilizing within the limits described in the city's proposition NS ordinance containing an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the perfection of Board Bill 222.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move for perfection of Board Bill 222.
Moved by the Alderman from the 22nd. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd and Alderman from the 27th. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, we had a lot of discussion about Board Bill 222 before we went on a spring break, and there were a couple attachments that people had issues with that were not in full form, but everyone should have on their desk the full bill with all attachments. There's attachment A, which is the cooperating agreement attached to Board Bill 222, and then there's attachment A to the cooperating agreement, which is part of the process of selecting the buildings to be rehabbed.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, if the Alderman from the 22nd would yield.
Alderman from the 22nd will yield to Alderman from the 1st.
Yes.
Alderman from the 1st, please proceed.
Alderman, I have two Board Bill 222s on my desk.
Right.
And so they gave me one, and then they came back and said, this is a different one, and this is the full one. So if you could enlighten me about.
Sure, it's kind of confusing. Originally everybody had Board Bill, should have had Board Bill 222 in their perfection packet on their desk.
Right.
But it's absent of the Annex A, Exhibit A. So the full one that you have that was passed out this morning has both Exhibit A's. And that's the only difference, that the exhibits are now attached. And you might have two of the actual same packets.
There's not been an amendment. It was just attaching amendments that originally, when we were here in February, I guess it was.
Exhibits.
When it was, February?
Yep.
Yes, okay, so you just attached the exhibits. You didn't amend anything.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, unless there are any other questions, I renew my motion.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Further discussion. Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize the close.
I renew my motion, Mr. President.
It's been moved and seconded that we perfect Board Bill number 222. There's been a request for roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Odenberg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. Mr. President.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderman Kotar. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderman Kennedy. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Cone. Alderman Bosley. It's 21 aye votes and 1 no vote.
By a vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from the 22nd and perfected Board Bill 222. Alderman from the 22nd, would you like to make the motion for suspension of the rules?
Okay, Mr. President, I move for suspension of rule for the purpose of placing the board bills on the perfection calendar, third reading calendar.
Third reading consent calendar.
Consent calendar. Okay, Board Bill 236, 192, 233, 234, 235.
And 222?
This is the third reading, third reading calendar.
Move them all to consent, and then we'll move one back so we don't have to.
Let me
so
restate
please start,
my motion.
yes.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'd like to move for suspension of rules to place the aforementioned bills on the third reading consent calendar. Board Bill 236, 192, 233, 234, 235, and 222.
It's been moved by the Alderman from 22nd. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderwoman from the 14th. We're going to move them, and then you can just move it back. Okay. All right. It's been moved and seconded. Is there a request for previous roll? It's been a request for previous roll. Madam Clerk, please place the aforementioned bills on the third reading consent calendar. And there's been a request that Board Bill 222 be moved to the regular third reading calendar by the Alderwoman from the first. So place Board Bill 222 on the third reading, regular third reading calendar.
So noted.
Third reading consent.
Board Bills 155, 156, 186, 187, 199, 205, 206, 208, 209, 210, 211, 218, 220, 221 as amended, 188 as amended, 175 committee sub, 229, 26, 136, 195, 196, 197, 198, 212 committee sub, 166 floor sub, 236, 192, 233, 234, and 235.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar. Oh, there, that was up. And place 191 on the third reading consent calendar. Thank you for that catch. So read 191.
And Board Bill 191.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for approval of the third reading consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. Any discussion? Is there a request for previous roll? There's been an objection to previous roll. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. Mr. President,
Aye.
Alderman Moore, Alderman Kotar, Alderman Ornowitz, Alderwoman Murphy, Alderman Kennedy, Alderman Muhammad, 21 aye votes and 1 present.
By your vote, you sustain the motion that Alderman from the 22nd and third read and finally passed the aforementioned bills. Third reading and report of engrossments.
Board Bill 231, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus and Alderman Muhammad, an ordinance enacted pursuant to Section 56.540 Revised Statutes of Missouri to repeal Ordinance 70056 relating to the Office of Circuit Attorney, allocating the positions established by Section 56.540 Revised Statutes of Missouri to classes with grades and a schedule setting minimum and maximum salaries for such grades by repealing Section 2 and replacing said section with provisions of this ordinance providing that such salaries be paid biweekly, providing for payment of overtime wages shall be subject to the requirement of Fair Labor Standard Acts of 1938 as applicable, and shall be allowed on the basis of hours worked and biweekly rate of pay. Compensatory time may be allowed in lieu of overtime as provided by law when such overtime is authorized as necessary by the circuit attorney and containing an emergency clause.
Alderman from the first, you recognize on third reading final passage of Board Bill 231.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for third reading final passage of Board Bill 231.
Moved by the Alderwoman from the first. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd. Alderwoman from the first, please proceed.
Mr. President, members of the board, Board Bill 231 is a pay ordinance for the circuit clerk's office. It is actually separated with another part that will go before Ways and Means. So this is the setup of how you set up the salaries and what assignments people are to different positions. And actually, we had to have a table of organization for the committee members, and if anybody wants it, I can share it with them, that the circuit attorney sent over so that people would know where her positions were and who they were. If anybody wants those, I do have those. And I renew my motion.
All right, any further discussion? Any further discussion? It's been moved by the Alderman from the first, seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd, that we third read and finally pass Board Bill 231. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Aye. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaquero. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. Mr. President.
Aye.
Alderman Moore. Alderman Kotar. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderman Muhammad. 24 aye votes.
By vote, you sustain the motion of Alderwoman from the first and third read and finally pass Board Bill 231. Report of enrollment.
I got to do 222.
You have 222.
Board Bill 222, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and apportionment authorizing and directing the city to issue and sell its general obligation bonds in various series in an aggregated principal amount of not to exceed $40 million, of which no more than $6 million in aggregated principal amount shall be issued annually for the purposes of stabilizing within a city's limits and the city's proposition NS ordinance containing an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on third reading, final passage of Board Bill 222.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for third reading, final passage of Board Bill 222.
Moved by the Alderman from the 22nd, and seconded by the Alderman from the 14th and the 27th. Alderman from the 22nd, please proceed.
Unless there's any discussion or debate, I'll renew my motion.
Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded, moved by the Alderman from the 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th and the 27th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Vollmer. I'm sorry. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Kotar. Alderman Ornowitz. 23 aye votes and 2 no votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion. Alderman from the 22nd and third read and finally passed Board Bill 222.
That is the extent of third reading report of engrossment. Oh.
You don't have to do that. You can record it in the journal by putting a statement in the journal. Yeah. If you would like to do a motion to reconsider, we can reconsider it. Please make your motion to reconsider the third reading consent calendar.
Okay. I move to reconsider and take off Board Bill 166, floor substitute on the third reading consent calendar. I move to reconsider that vote.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the first that we reconsider the vote for the third reading consent calendar. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd, 21st. Who's it? Who said it was 21st and 20? It's yours, the 21st. Any further discussion?
Mr. President, members of the board, I'm asking for a motion to reconsider because I usually go up to the president and I give him in writing, and I know sometimes it's not that he intentionally would do anything, and even I only heard it after we had voted. I had asked that this be put on the the third reading and report of engrossment and final passage instead of the consent, and it accidentally got put in there. So I just want to do a motion to reconsider so that we can reconsider it and put it on the correct calendar so that I will be able to debate and say why I am opposed to this bill instead of just recording it in the journal. And I'd ask your support for my motion to reconsider.
All right. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 17th.
Yes, Mr. President, in light of the late hour and the fact that we've been down here for a long time, I would urge that we just vote no on this and encourage the Alderwoman to make a note for the journal.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 1st, seconded by the Alderman from the 21st, that we suspend the rules for the purposes of we move to reconsider the previous vote for the third reading consent calendar. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. Mr. President.
Aye.
Alderman Moore. Alderman Kotar. Alderman Ornowitz. 24 aye votes and 1 no vote.
All right, vote. You stay in the motion of the Alderwoman from the 1st. So brings us back to the third reading consent calendar. Do you want to move the bill, or do we just? It'd be best just to take the vote and let you vote no. That's the most expedient piece at this point.
Thank you. I thought the Alderman had to bring the bill up before I could speak to it, so that's a point of order.
No, I don't know if you just wanted to record your no vote. If you want to, we could just revote the third reading consent calendar. You vote no there. Otherwise, we can move it to the third reading calendar.
Correct. That's what I want.
All right. Madam Clerk, please place Board Bill 166 for substitute on the regular third reading calendar.
So noted.
Third reading consent.
Board Bills 155, 156, 186, 187, 199, 205, 206, 208, 209, 210, 211, 218, 220, 221 as amended, 188 as amended, 175 committee sub, 229, 226, 136, 195, 196, 197, 198, 212 committee sub, 236, 192, 233, 234, 235, and 222.
I'm
sorry, not 222.
Yeah. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the third reading consent calendar of the aforementioned bills.
President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the third reading consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Negracia. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. Mr. President.
Aye.
Alderman Moore. Alderman Kotar. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderman Kennedy. I'm sorry, Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Muhammad. 23 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from the 18th and third read and finally passed the aforementioned bills. Third reading, report of engrossments.
Board Bill 155.
Not 165 floor.
I'm
One-
sorry.
166 floor substitute.
Oh, okay. 166, floor sub, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey. An ordinance determining that the tax increment financing plans listed in Exhibit A are making satisfactory progress under the proposed time schedule for completion of projects herein.
Alderman from the 17th, you recognize on the third read and final passage of Board Bill 166, floor substitute.
I move for third reading, final passage.
Moved by the Alderman from the 17th, entertained second by the Alderman from the 16th. Any discussion? Alderman from the 1st.
Members of the board, in honor of thanking everybody for letting me to reconsider my vote, it'll be very short. I do not believe that the exhibit that the Alderman passed out at our last meeting showing that much of these projects were in red is satisfactory progress. For that reason, and for the other reason that I believe that his use of tax increment financing over the years has been outrageous, I am going to vote no against Board Bill 166, floor substitute, and that is the extent of my debate.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 17th, you recognize the close.
Motion.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 17th, seconded by the Alderman from the 16th, that we third read and finally pass Board Bill 166, floor substitute. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Negracia. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. Mr. President,
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderman Kotar. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. 22 aye votes and 2 no votes.
By vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from 17th and 3rd read and finally passed Board Bill 166, floor substitute. Board Bill 191.
Okay. Board Bill 191, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Comptroller.
Continue, Madam Clerk.
Board of Estimate and Apportionment making certain findings with respect to the transfer of up to $17,727,769 of excess monies that the City of St. Louis, the owner and operator of St. Louis Lambert International Airport, intends to transfer from the Debt Service Stabilization Fund to the Airport Revenue Fund.
Alderwoman from the 19th, you recognize on the 3rd reading, final passage of Board Bill 191.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move to adopt Board Bill 191.
Moved by the Alderman from the 19th. Entertain a second or second by Alderman from the 13th and Alderman from the 22nd. Any discussion? Alderman from the 19th, you recognize the close.
I renew my motion.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 19th, seconded by the Alderman from the 13th and the Alderman from the 22nd, that we 3rd read and finally pass Board Bill 191. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Kotar. Alderwoman Rice. Alderman Gunther. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Martin. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderwoman Murphy. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Green. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Muhammad. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Navarro. Mr. President. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderman Kotar. Alderman Ornowitz. Alderman Kennedy. Alderman Muhammad. 22 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion. Alderman from the 19th and 3rd read and finally passed Board Bill 191.
That's the extent of 3rd reading report of engrossment.
Report of enrollment.
Board Bill 155, 156, 186, 187, 199, 205, 206, 208, 209, 210, 211, 218, 220, 221 as amended, 188 as amended, 175 committee sub, 229, 26, 136, 195, 196, 197, 198, 212 committee sub, 231, 236, 192, 233, 234, 235, 222, 166 floor sub, and 191.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. First reading resolutions.
Resolution 295, sponsored by Alderman Boyd. The Board of Aldermen encouraged the LRA to adopt a policy which will govern the use of the funding derived from the bonds authorized by Board Bill 222, and such policy shall provide for a transparent process for the selection, contracting, and sale of such properties utilizing Prop NS funds, and such process shall provide for citizen input and advisory role of the property selection.
Madam Clerk, at the request of the sponsor, Resolution 295, he's chosen to withdraw it.
So noted.
Second reading resolutions.
We have none.
Miscellaneous unfinished business.
St. Louis Housing Authority Commission, Leonard Jones, Stephen Foch, Gail Brown, Danetta James, and Danetta Booth.
Alderman from the 17th, you recognized on the second reading resolution for the St. Louis Affordable Housing Commission.
Mr. President, members of the board, the HUD's committee met this morning. We had all four nominees in attendance, and we had a constructive and meaningful discussion with each of them, and it was voted on unanimously that they be appointed.
All right, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 17th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 19th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That is extent of miscellaneous and unfinished business.
Announcements.
Tuesday, April 16th, full board meeting, room 230, 10 a.m. in the chambers. First meeting of the 2019-2020 session. That is the extent of announcements.
For everyone who is newly reelected and for any of the newly elected aldermen that are here, still here, we need to have you here tomorrow morning at 9:30 for the swearing in the leisure room prior to the board meeting. So make sure that you're here by 9:30. If you have any family and friends that you're inviting, tell them that the start time is at 9:30. Any further announcements? Alderman from the 10th. Any further? Alderman from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I'd like to make an announcement that the outfit being worn by Mr. Ogilvie is part of the Dave Swinney Spring Collection. It's available in the gift shop down in the rotunda today. Thank you very much.
All right. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 1st.
President, members of the board, I saw two of our other new members were up in the galley. They may have left now, but we had future Alderwoman Shameen Hubbard, who's going to be the 14th Alderwoman. We're going to have gender equality at the Board of Aldermen. And then I also saw future, who was the other person I saw? We saw Brett Narayan from the 24th, who will take the Dave Swinney collection and make it his own.
All right, thank you. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 18th? There you are. Alderman from the 18th. I'm used to seeing you back there. Alderman from the 18th, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move that the Alderman from the 4th and the 7th are excused for necessary absence.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 18th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 13th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You're a little slow now. Really didn't hear you. Alderman from the 18th, as your last
motion at the Board of Aldermen. You're recognized to adjourn. Sine die.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move that the board adjourn sine die.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 18th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by Alderman from the 25th, and everybody. Congratulations, Alderman. We're adjourned sine die.